This is our Check Our Understanding for Unit 4, Section 6. This first one is looking at the relationship between x and y here. So I'm going to start by looking at my x. This right here in red is my x. X is going to represent 100%, or a whole. And I'm going to look and see how many pieces is x divided into. In this case, x is divided into 5 equal pieces. So if I take 100 and divide it into 5, I get 20%. So that means each piece represents 20% of the whole. Okay, now we're going to look at y, and we want to decide, is y greater than x or less than? Is it increasing from x or decreasing? So since y is more than x, we are increasing from what x is. So at x, we were at 100%, y has one whole, or 120% more. All right, this situation is taking a look at a diagram and deciding if we are increasing or decreasing by a percentage. So x is going to be our representation of 100%. So x is 100%. My x is broken into 5 equal pieces. So that means 100% divided by 5 is 20. Each piece of my diagram represents 20%. All right. So if each piece of my diagram represents 20%, now we need to decide, is y less than x, meaning we're subtracting a percentage or a decreasing, or is y more than x, so we're increasing? So we can obviously see here that y is 2 of these squares less. Well, each square is 20%, so this means that y is 40% less than x. And 40% less is a decrease here. Y is a decrease of 40% relative to x. The word relative just means compared to. Now, just to look at this a different way, it's not one of our options, but if we were to look at x relative to y, x is 40% more, or 140% increase, because we have 100% and 140% increase. All right, these problems on question 2 is just asking us to say, what percent of the original amount did we have? So if we are increasing, we are adding to the whole, the 100%. If we are decreasing, we are subtracting from the whole. We're subtracting from the 100%. So let's look at this first one. It says this month there was 40% more rain than last month. The amount of rain was what percent of the amount of rain last month? Well, we have the word more. That's a very critical word here. So we had 100%, and then this month we are 40% more. So that is 140% increase. Okay, or 140% of the rain, not increase, but 140% of what we started with last year. Okay, this next one says, today the bake sale sold 20% fewer cookies than yesterday. The number of cookies at the bake sale today was what percent of the number of cookies sold yesterday? So the word fewer means we have less, or subtraction. So we have 100, and then we have 20% fewer. So 100% minus 20% is 80%. Okay, this next one. This year, there was a 30% increase. So that means more, adding. There's a 30% increase in the number of rainy days. Oh, sorry, cloudy days compared to last year. The number of cloudy days this year is what percent of the cloudy days last year? So if this last year was 100%, we are increasing last year's by 30%. So that is 130%. The last question says, during today's basketball game, there was a 65% decrease in the number of drinks sold as compared to last week's game. So we're decreasing, that's less. The number of drinks sold at today's game was what percent of the number of drinks sold at last week's game? So last week was 100%. This week we were 65 less or decreasing. So 100 minus 65 is we have 35% of the drinks sold last week's game. So if we are increasing, we add to the 100%. If we are decreasing, we subtract from the 100%. It's that simple. All right, for these problems, the question asks us for each diagram, decide if y is an increase or decrease relative to x, then to determine the percent increase or decrease. So what we have here is my x. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 parts of x. So x is 100%. Now y is only this part. So is it more, meaning we're increasing, or less, meaning we're decreasing? So y is less. There's not as many as y's as there are x's. So in this case, on the drop-down bar, we would pick it's a decrease for A. And to find the percent decrease, we are breaking x up into 4 parts. So we're going to divide 100 by 4. That is 25%. Each portion of x divided into 25% increments. So that means that y is here 25% decrease. 25% decrease right there. Okay, diagram B, we have our x. There's 4 parts on our whole again. So our x is the 100%. Each part, once again, since there are 4 parts, represents 25%. Now, is y more, meaning we're increasing, or less, meaning we're decreasing? Well, if we look at the bar, y is longer, and there's 1 extra part on y. So it's more, we're increasing. So we would type in or select the increase button here. And this portion right here is 25%. So this is also a 25% increase. They're different though, because one is a 25% decrease and B has a 25% increase. When we have less, we are decreasing. When we have more, we are increasing. Question 4 asks us to write each increase or decrease as a percentage of the initial amount in the boxes of the first one. So let's look at A. It says, this is an example. This year there was 40% more snow than last year. The amount of snow this year is 140% of the snow last year. So we are adding, like we saw earlier, if we have last year was 100% or the whole, This year was 40% more, so we are adding. That's where we get the 140%. Okay, the next question here says, this year there were 25% fewer sunny days than last year. So we are going to call last year 100%, the whole. This year there's 25% fewer. So that means we have 25% less. So that is 75%. This year is 75% of the number of sunny days as last year. C, compared to last month, there was a 50% increase in the number of houses sold in a month. So, last month was 100%. This month there was a 50% increase. So that means the number of houses sold this month is 150% of the numbers sold last month. And the last one says, the runner's time to complete this marathon was 10% less than the time to complete it the last marathon. So less means subtraction. So we would have 100% was the first marathon. This year we were 10% less time. That means we were faster. So that would be, this time it was 90% of the time from last marathon. This problem is pretty similar to question 2. It's just really good to get used to, so that's why we did so many problems like this. This last question says that Priya bought X grams of flour. Claire bought 3/8 more than that. Select all the equations that represent the relationship between the amount of flour that Priya bought, X, and the amount of flour that Claire bought, Y. Okay, so let's look here. Here is Priya. She bought X amount of flour. Claire bought 3/8 more than X. So if I were to take my 3/8 or my Claire's red triangle, I break my X value up into 8s. And then, so that's my X amount. And then I add 1, 2, 3 more 8s. 3/8 X. So that's my first equation of Y. Y equals X plus 3/8 X. That's C. Okay, there's one more answer, and that's adding X plus 3/8. So if I have 1X plus 3/8 X, and this is something we could do on a calculator, but because you don't have a calculator watching this video, or maybe you do, I don't know. If we add 1 plus 3/8, and we're going to change 1 into 8/8, that ends up being 11/8. So we can say Y equals 11/8 X. So that's the other option. This one was a review problem from section 4 of unit 4. So it is one that we saw before, but it's just really adding fractions. That's all you're doing. Okay, that is the end of this Check Your Understanding for section 6. I hope you guys understand, and if you do have any questions, feel free to come and ask me.